how to double your top referring realtors in the next 24 hours. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you a strategy that I actually stumbled into that has worked amazingly well for me and other agents that I taught it to. I'm going to show you some very specific language on how to apply it. And then I'm going to show you how to modify it so that if you do have some realtors that are referring you all the time, how to not only clone them once, but sometimes 3, 4, and 5 times. And I'm telling you, this tactic works like crazy. This is a new series that I'm doing called the 10-Minute Tactical Podcast. It's something that we're going to launch every Friday. And the idea is to give you something really short and useful that you can apply to your mortgage business right away. So skip all the fluff. So these episodes are going to be quick, hard-hitting, and hopefully really, really useful. My name is Scott Peckford. I'm the founder of I Love Mortgage Brokering as well as Bricks Mortgage. And I'm excited to have you join me for this episode today. Before I get into how you can actually clone your best realtors, I want to give a shout out to our title sponsor, Finmo. Finmo is a Canadian mortgage application, document collection, submission platform designed specifically for Canadian borrowers. It's very easy to use. It's got some cool features like Smart Docs. It knows what documents the client needs based on the app. It's connected to Lender Spotlight, which is the best tool for searching rates and guidelines. Over 8,000 of them. They're updating it every single day. So if you're looking for something, and then it's got smart submission notes, it pulls key data from the application when it sends into the lender. You can check them out at lendesk.com/Finmo. So I said at the beginning of this, I'm going to share with you how to clone your best referring realtor partner. So this is for if you have a realtor that already likes you and loves you. Most of you have been in the business for more than 6 months. You probably have 2 or 3 that send you most of their business. So imagine if this realtor who sends you 5, 10 deals a year, you could clone that realtor, your best ones. You'd be like, man, that would be awesome. Even if you clone your best 3, it would probably make a big impact in your business or your top 5. And so I'll share with you this strategy that I literally stumbled into. A lot of the strategies that I share, it's because of doing this podcast for almost 10 years now, as well as running a coaching academy and working with a lot of mortgage brokers. And sometimes the tactics, a lot of times it comes from those interactions. This one I stumbled into by accident on my own. And so I don't have anybody else to blame for this one. And so the thing about finding realtor partners, so if you just went out and started doing, cold calling or whatever, is that in a lot of markets, like 50% of realtors are doing hardly any business, like 0 to 1 files a year. And maybe it's because it's a hobby thing. Maybe they got their license to sell their own house. Who knows? But the reality is that, if you try a spray and pray approach, it's not usually as effective. How do you find that realtor that, I call it a life-changing realtor, just through the phone book? You can. So I'm not saying you can't do it. You can. But if you don't have any good realtor partners, you're going to have to probably do that or some version of a strategy, which I'll talk about in an upcoming episode. There's other strategies around this, but this particular tactic I want to just dive into, assuming you have a realtor who already likes and refers you. So, I'm a little bit of a slow learner. And so when I got into the mortgage business, I had this one realtor that I worked with. I'll call him Craig because, that's his name. And Craig was an awesome dude. And he actually referred me everything that he got. He was one of these, for me, top realtors. And actually the first file I ever sent, I got from Craig, I declined. And I'll talk about that probably in an upcoming episode. Future episode, but I told him no on the first file. And then we turned into fantastic partners. In any case, so Craig, I was working with a client, I had him pre-approved, and Craig went and you know how this happens. Somebody gets pre-approved and they disappear for a while. And then next, the client comes back and I'm like, cool, like awesome. So I was chatting with him, great. I'm going to send this over to Craig right now. Oh no, I'm not working with Craig right now. I'm like, what do you mean you're not working with Craig? In my head, I'm like, Craig doesn't lose anybody. He's an absolute beast. When he gets a client, he's like, wraps his arms around them and they love him and it's amazing. So I was a bit surprised. I'm like, why are you not working with Craig? He goes, I'm working with Becky. This is Craig's, when Craig was on vacation, so he referred me to Becky. So I was like, oh, cool. Okay. Well, my head, I'm like, well, if Craig trusts Becky, I got to trust Becky. And then as I, start working with Becky, I was like, man, she's pretty awesome. Afterwards, I started thinking, I was like, you know what? Like, why on earth have I not asked Craig for this introduction sooner? Like, duh. So dumb of me not to do this. And so what I did was when Craig got back, we sat down and, we were chatting and having a beer. And I said to him, man, I just out of curiosity, like, obviously I like working with you. You like working with me. How have you never introduced me to Becky before? He's like, I just didn't think of it. Like, and I was like, yeah, cool. So, I worked with her once already. So, it sounds like we're going to start working together. But this got me thinking with my other top realtor partners is like, how do I actually engineer that? So don't wait for them to go on vacation, but just do it sooner. And so what I recommend you do, this is the tactic part of it, is that you sit down with your top realtors that absolutely love you and say, hey, you know what? And maybe remind them, hey, good connect, build some rapport, and then say, hey, man, it's been a great year. I really love working with you. Your clients, we just have this great rapport with clients. And hey, just out of curiosity, if you go on vacation, who covers it for you? Who covers your listings? And then you just wait. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to say, oh, it's Sally, it's, Tom, it's whoever, it doesn't matter. And you're going to say, oh, cool. Well, tell me a little bit about them. And then they're going to tell you and say, hey, would you mind introducing me to that person? Because obviously, man, I like working with you and we get along well. I'd probably get along well with them. And so it's literally that easy. You figure out who your realtor partners, your top people would get to cover for them if they go out of town, go to Mexico or something, and they can't do it themselves. And you ask for an introduction. That is going to be the highest quality referral you could possibly get, because these people already know, like, and trust each other, right? If they're trading business. And then now they introduce you, and it's like, it's basically, as long as you don't screw it up, you're pretty much, it's a slam dunk for you. It's like they set you up under the net, and they're passing you the ball, and there's literally nobody around. You just bank it off the backboard. So you can still miss, but it's a very low probability. So I recommend that any of certainly your top three, if you've got 3 realtors that refer you, you should immediately have 6. So that's the easiest thing in the world to do. Have that conversation. And the way the scripting works is just, hey, man, I really like you. I like working with your clients. We get along well. Just out of curiosity, who covers for you when you go away? Or you could start the conversation. Hey, you take any vacations this year? Yeah, or last year, and then use that as a way to move the conversation towards that. Ask for the introduction. So now, in terms of what could happen, there's a couple of possible outcomes. One, some realtors don't want to refer you. Now, if you've got a relationship where you refer business back and forth and they see you as a source of business, often this is when that happens. They're like, well, I don't want to give out your name because you're my secret, source of deals, and I'm not telling anybody else about that. I have found that I had, most of the realtor partners that did not have any problem. I had 1 or 2 that thought that it wasn't the case, that they were the only person I referred to. Don't tell them. But the reality was that's what they thought. And so if they give you pushback on it, so the best case scenario is they send an email introduction to both of you. Say, hey, Sally, this is Scott. He's my mortgage broker. I was thinking the other day, you guys need to talk. I'll let you sort it out from here. And you can actually write up an email that has a bit more detail and give it to your realtor partner. So if you really wanted to take this next level, write up a nice glowing testimony about yourself, give it to the realtor, and then have the realtor send it to the realtor partner and CC you on it. And then you follow up. And you're pretty much like slam dunk. You're going to the best referral you're ever going to get to another realtor. And it works. Like I have coached a ton of people on this, and it works like a hot damn. And so that's the first thing. If they say, no, because I had one guy in particular, an old school guy who would be a bit more, he's a bit more reluctant to refer me, then I would just say something like, hey, if I know they wouldn't refer, I'd say, do you mind, like when they talk about this person that covers, I'd say, do you mind if when I reach out to them that I can mention your name? I drop your name. So they're not giving you the intro. So best case scenario is they give you an amazing glowing intro. Second best scenario is you still find out who that person is, this other realtor, and then you just ask, and they're not going to say no to that. So no, you can't tell anybody about us. So then you can still, it's not quite as good, but it'll still work. And so that's the second way you do it. The way you can modify this. So that's how you clone your top 3. Now, if you want to modify this and you want to actually get more than one realtor clone, so you got that realtor, let's call him Craig, and I got Craig's person that covers from the list. How do I find 2 or 3 more realtor partners from Craig? So here's how this is the advanced version of the tactic. And I have to be done this podcast very quickly. So, because I'm going to try to keep it under 10 minutes. And so what you do is you say, like, let's say you live in a place where people typically move. So let's say you're in Calgary, Alberta, and people are moving to Edmonton or wherever. There's usually outlying areas that people from your community will typically move to. And realtors will often have a partner, or they may have a partner in some of those markets. And so the way I would start that conversation, I probably wouldn't do these conversations at the same time. By the way, I just feel like that's a little bit janky. What I would do is I would say, just, hey, Craig, just out of curiosity, do you ever, people that sell, where's most likely you see them moving to when they leave Kelowna? That's where I live in Kelowna. And he's going to say, oh, I got a ton of clients that move to Penticton or move to Calgary. Oh, cool. Hey, do you have a realtor that you refer people to? Because realtors refer because they get paid. And if they got a realtor in another community, now you say, hey, that guy that you work with in Calgary all the time, do you mind introducing me? I'd love to work with him. And I know people that have they do more business outside of their primary market than their external market because they've been able to get these introductions. And so hopefully you find that useful. Go out and try it. So here's my, so just a quick reminder, tactic is clone your top realtors by asking them for who covers for them. And then if there's secondary markets that people move to frequently that your realtor doesn't service but refers to, get those introductions, of course, and then follow up. Hopefully you found this podcast useful. I'm going to be doing more of these. And so here's my call to action for you, because I'd love getting feedback from you. And I'm going to start sharing more feedback in these shows. And I just crossed 10 minutes, but this is my first one. I'll get a little more tighter at it. And so if you try this, so I encourage you to try, like literally, you can do this like so fast. I'd love for you to send me an email, scott@ilovemortgagebrokering.com, with what happens. So if you're like, hey man, it worked, or hey, no, it didn't work, you suck, Scott, whatever, I don't really care. Send me an email. So send me an email and let me know how it goes, because I would love to read on a future one, say, hey, this is Tom from wherever. He's a mortgage broker. This is what happened. Like, I would absolutely love that. So if you could send me an email, that'd be fantastic. Thanks again for listening to this show, the 10-minute tactical podcast. And there's a great quote from Sun Tzu in The Art of War. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. And that is why we are focusing on tactics on this podcast.